You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode is the slasher film Hush, directed by Mike Flanagan, released April 8th, 2016.
Oh, Pake, I know
Yes.
how much you love Mike Flanagan.
I do. Very, 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 very much.
You've covered multiple shows that he's done on Strange Indeed with Rima, so you've seen this one before, right?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I couldn't remember.
I've seen pretty much everything he's done except for maybe like one or two things. One that I know of.
If it's something that we should be covering here, then I guess we're going to have to take care of that.
Yeah. So yeah, big fan of Mike Flanagan. Like I said, I've covered 3 Mike Flanagan things on Strange Indeed, 2 series and a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so it's very past due time that we do some Flanagan here on Run for Your Lives. I don't know why we haven't yet. That's like,
I don't know.
Why has it taken us this long to get to the man, the myth, the legend himself?
I don't know. Sometimes it just takes us a little while to get to it. And now that we have, we can go ahead and break this down.
Yes, I'm excited.
All right. So, starting off with the production notes, was filmed in and around Fairhope, Alabama. Mike Flanagan co-wrote the script with his wife, Kate Siegel, who also starred in the lead role as Maddie. It's one of 3 horror movies directed by Mike Flanagan to be released in 2016, along with Before I Wake and Ouija, Origin of Evil.
One of those I've seen and the one I haven't. So.
All right. Well, we'll see which one we have to cover. The budget was $1 million, and since it was released on Netflix, there is no box office to announce. It's 81 minutes. Pake, bring on a synopsis.
All right. A deaf and mute writer who retreated into the woods to live a solitary life must fight for her life in silence when a masked killer appears at her window.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Thanks, IMDb.
How did I know? I
ain't got time to be figuring these things out on my own.
You don't? Come on, you're very talented when you want to be clever and put things together. So, I really liked this one. I thought it was very clever. I liked that they used American Sign Language and did some practical things like her feeling for vibrations. And they were just things that were set up to me that made it more believable.
Yeah. It's a quick one. It's short and it's pretty to the point, but when watching it kind of through a podcast lens and really looking at themes and things that were in there, there's stuff that I didn't really notice when I had seen it before that I thought was really cool. So of course we'll talk about that, but yeah, like really like looking at some of those things, I'm like, okay. It's really well put together. I dig it.
It is. There are some interesting things that I took from it. Particularly a book called Midnight Mass that she happened to write.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we'll have to definitely break into it then.
Definitely. As we do, usually we kind of break down characters. Of course, there is one main character that this entire movie follows for the most part. I do have some separate notes about, we can talk specifically about the man, the killer, the masked intruder. So I've got some separate notes there, and then
me too.
Little other things, but mainly, yeah, it's kind of this is another one of those movies where we're gonna be talking most all of this through the lens of the character of Maddie.
Yes. Yes, we are. I liked Maddie. I thought she was tough. She gave it back to him, and John Gallagher Jr., he was in 10 Cloverfield Lane. He was in one of my favorite movies, The Belko Experiment. He's been in a ton of things. He was really creepy in this one.
Yes. Yeah, because I have that kind of note. I was like, John Gallagher Jr. as, our beloved Emmett from 10 Cloverfield Lane. Not quite as beloved this time around.
No, definitely not. Yeah, he was definitely very creepy. The mask he had was very creepy. I mean, here it is. We just covered the Black Phone with a very creepy mask. Here we are again with another killer with a mask. He didn't wear that mask very long, so... No.
It's funny you mentioned Black Phone, because I do have another note about connecting those two, aside from the mask. This is one of those, because I wondered if you even thought about this and thought about me while watching this, because it being another, serial killer kind of thing. Because I just noticed, it's funny that, we just recently covered the Black Phone, so anybody who listened to that episode know that I recently, I had quite a hang-up, no pun intended, with there not being any motives for the killer. Yet for some reason in this movie, I'm not worried about it at all. I don't care. Doesn't matter. Is it just because it's different style, different? I have no idea. I can't explain what the differences are, but for some reason I'm like, yeah, no, that's fine. I don't need it in this movie.
Because it seems like really a random killing. He's killed 13 other people.
Yeah.
He's marked it on the side of his compound bow that he was using. And yeah, I feel like we have to just jump into Maddie. Let's rewind and let's jump into Maddie.
All right. Yeah, so first meet Maddie, played by Kate Siegel, of course, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Love her. And she is a deaf and mute writer who, I guess when she's not cooking up her second novel, her sophomore novel, she's attempting to cook up some dinner. Can't quite get that sauce right. Can't quite get it.
No, she's having some trouble with the cooking. She forgets that she's even cooking. And goes out onto the porch to hang out with her next door neighbor and friend who just finished reading a book called Midnight Mass.
Yeah, which books, the books, before talking about hers, I did notice, because we kind of see a little bit of her house and things, I noticed that she has quite a few Stephen King books in her collection, which makes a lot of sense. She's a horror writer based off of what Midnight Mass is. And, knowing that, but then also in real life, of course, Mike Flanagan, who directed this,
big fan,
a huge fan and friend of Mr. King. So
yeah, yeah, for sure.
So it's a good little nod. Also, I don't know if I'd have my cat running around outside, living in a secluded wooded area like that. There are way too many predators outside. Why?
Exactly.
Why is it running around?
The cat comes and goes. And we'll get to that about the cat, because there were multiple times while I was watching this that I said the same thing out loud. And we'll get to that once we come upon that part of the story. I like the way that things moved back and forth between having sound and no sound. So we're getting sounds that you would hear in a kitchen, and then we're hearing it like Maddie would hear it. And I appreciated that, because it kind of put you in her world, but also, showed you generally what was going on. And it fluctuated between the two a bunch of times in this movie, and I really appreciated it. It connected me even more. And I felt connected to Maddie, right from the beginning. But I do have to say, someone should proofread the back of these books, because there were multiple spelling errors in words like meningitis was one of the words. Receive was spelled wrong. It was kind of, the grammar nerd in me was kind of having a field day.
I didn't even really notice. That's funny. Because I even paused on it. I was reading that whole thing. I didn't even notice.
Yep.
Yeah, but speaking of, Midnight Mass, it's her first book, which, again, is really cool. You mentioned Sarah, her neighbor / friend, played by Samantha Saloyan, popped over. They're discussing Midnight Mass, which is really cool because it is an actual story that is from Mike Flanagan's brain that he came up with and ended up turning into its own incredible series 5 years later after this movie came out.
Yeah, wasn't that cool?
So,
and you covered it. So
we did. Yeah, me and Rima covered it over on Strange Indeed. And both of these actresses that are having this conversation about this book ended up being in the series of Midnight Mass. Siegel playing Aaron and Sloyan playing Bev. And it's cool because they're discussing characters and things from there. You know, I loved Riley and Aaron. They were bringing up these characters. And as they're like talking about those things, it's just like bringing me back to that beautiful show and be like, they were great characters. They were, right?
Like... Yeah, I have to agree. Mm-hmm. And I also love that Sarah the neighbor, we don't get to see a lot of her, but I like that she's trying to learn sign language to better communicate with Maddie, which is what a good friend would do. Like, they would be supportive and try to be helpful, and also go the extra mile when it comes to, you know, communication. So I appreciated that.
Yeah, because Maddie's good at reading lips, but still that she puts in that extra time to like, but I want to be able to communicate with you better because I care for you as a friend. This feels like something I can put in some work for, which is really admirable.
It is, but she had some trouble with some of the words.
Yeah, we got to get the storyteller / kisser thing figured out.
Yes. Yeah. I like to, she's talking a bit about the voice in her head. Because Sarah asks her about that. Like, is the voice in your head a kid? Like, is it your voice? And she talks about it being like her mom's voice that's in her head, helping her map out this story. And that comes to play later in the movie.
Which is funny because it really is the voice of Kate Siegel.
Even
it's this adult voice. But yeah, within movie, she asks, would it be a kid's voice? Because we learn through that, I guess, riddled with grammatical errors that I just totally overlooked and missed, biography on the back of the book. That she wasn't born deaf mute, that she, at the age of 13, did contract bacterial meningitis that took away her hearing and partial vocal paralysis. And then due to some surgery stuff going wrong, she lost her voice completely after that, and hearing stayed gone. But so she wasn't born that way, so she did have some hearing understanding life as a kid, and then lost it at 13, and then has gone on from there being a non-hearing person.
But she doesn't let it stop her. She has created a world for herself at her house in the country, which she much prefers to being in the city, because her sister Max would love for her to move back, but you know. Yeah,
I like her little joke. It's like, why don't you come back to the city? It's too loud.
Yeah. It mentioned it in the biography on the back of the book that it was too difficult to adapt to everything that was going on, because New York City is a very vibrant, noisy place. Mm-hmm. So I can see where it might be hard to adapt to that.
Yeah. So she did have, her first book, Midnight Mass, was her first and only right now. She's working on, it seems like, a sequel. She's not as good of a cook as she is a writer, so that's what we have learned. But the writing, is kind of she doesn't want to be like this one-hit wonder. She's really struggling on this second one, which is interesting. It looks like she's working on a sequel because there's a lot of, it's Sweetwater is the title that she's working on. But then the inner voice that you're talking about, she's kind of narrating things and she's writing them out. She's mentioning the names like Riley, Aaron, Father Paul, of course. Also part of the Midnight Mass story when that was made. No spoilers for people who haven't seen Midnight Mass, but I don't think a sequel with all of those characters would work very well with the actual story for several different reasons. Also, if you haven't seen Midnight Mass, immediately after you're done listening to this, that's what I need you to do, is go watch that because you will thank me.
I thought the same thing, because I basically in my head was, how are you going to make that happen? I don't know how in the world that can happen, but you never know.
Yeah.
And she's got this adorable cat. I love the cat. But the cat's name is kind of ridiculous, because the cat's name is Bitch. And everyone calls her bitch.
Yep.
She's got a little name tag that says bitch on it. It's just kind of crazy.
It's great. I love it.
And I think that she has, if not a boyfriend, a significant other, or someone that she cares about or cares about her, because she decides to FaceTime him and then doesn't.
Yeah, after he had like called, because everybody was like, whoever Craig is, it's over, dude. Take a hint. But then maybe not, because she does try FaceTiming him and then bails out at the last second, so, and then won't answer him again. So who knows what happened there.
Yeah. But as she's in her house, Sarah runs to the door and starts pounding on it because she's being chased by the delightful John Gallagher Jr. Mm-hmm. Only he's got a knife and a bow, and he's relentless. But Max actually, during the conversation that Max has with Maddie, she notices someone is standing behind her.
Yeah, but then she's just like, oh, it's that cat. Bitch cat.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't realize, I had forgotten, and so I didn't realize that the cat's name really was Bitch.
Yeah. Until
I saw the name tag, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot that part. Because I saw this quite a while back. Yeah. Probably when it first came out.
Mm-hmm. Man, yeah, the way we're introduced to the killer, which I don't talk too much about him yet, but it's really well done, creepy, where he just straight up just repeatedly stabs Sarah outside the window just over and over, and Maddie is completely oblivious to all of it. And then later on, he's inside the house and she's talking to her sister, and he's just listening in to the conversation. And then she sees a little bit of movement in the background. Max does, but not enough. Yeah, but she's just walking around.
He goes in to get her phone. Mm-hmm. Then that's how he learns more about Craig and her trying to say she has a boyfriend coming home. Like, he uses that to torment her, basically, because...
And also, there's the way of him doing that, to where when she can't FaceTime 911 because he shuts the power off, and your laptop needs Wi-Fi connection, but you don't need Wi-Fi connection for a phone, unless you don't have that phone, because he took it.
Yep. He's pretty clever.
Yeah. There's another little, speaking, I mentioned that she played this role, but, it is kind of meta, as she's frustrated trying to figure out the ending of this second book. And then she just finishes it with, Aaron realized that she was a shitty writer. And I was like, again, it's funny because of Kate Siegel playing the character of Aaron later on in real life. It's funny that she's putting herself in the place of that character here in some way.
Yeah.
It's like, you really did go on to play Aaron later, though, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is. That was a cool connection. Not much time passes before she realizes that he is outside, because he sends her photos from her own phone.
Yeah, that he was like following her around the house while she was rattling the cat food looking for bitch.
And at that point, I will say, was the first time I said, don't you dare kill the cat, Mike Flanagan. Don't you dare kill bitch.
Because as we've seen, again, it doesn't spoil a whole lot at all for Midnight Mass, but we've seen through that. Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of care for the life of cats, necessarily.
No.
That show will kick you right off with that, so,
Absolutely.
But yeah, the phone picture messages from her own phone while she's sitting there on her computer.
Can you imagine?
Man, that is creepy.
I love how iPhones and MacBooks will sync for that stuff. But I have to admit that if I got a phone call or a text message from my phone on my MacBook, it would freak me out.
It would freak me out even more because my phone is always right here next to me. So if I'm on my computer, I also have my phone.
Well, you use your phone a lot as a computer. Your phone is all... You use the computer for podcasting.
That's literally it, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yes, I mentioned, the reason he took the phone. And then even, she's trying to get on her Wi-Fi, he turned off the power, and then she goes to use Sarah's Wi-Fi, because, again, neighbor, her house is nearby. And I don't think that the killer thought of that immediately, but then you see him grab her phone and check. And you can see, once he notices that it is password protected, that she can't get in, he's like, okay, cool. I don't have to worry about that part. Because he probably would have just run over there and turned that power off too, I'm sure. But...
Yeah. This is a game to him. Like, you can tell that right from the beginning. And he's enjoying it because it's like playing cat and mouse with her. And he's just kind of terrorizing her. Like, playing with his food before he eats it, basically.
We learn pretty quickly with him. He used it because the mask was there for long. And that's part of the game. She's kind of trying to reason with him, if that's what you want to call it. It's not exactly that, but where she takes the lipstick and she writes on the window where she's saying, she has a boyfriend who's coming. She hasn't seen his face, so she can keep quiet about it, and we can just move on past this. And his response to that is just to take his mask off and be like, well, you see my face now, so now you're in it. Let's play the game, where it's gone. And yeah, I mean, he is just in it for a sick game. That's what he's doing here.
Yeah. And this was a challenge for him because you get the impression that he had never faced someone quite like Maddie before. And this was, she turned out to be quite a foe for him because I don't think he was expecting that she used her senses to fight him.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the movie is her trying different things and them not working. Yeah. But getting little victories throughout also. She's barricading herself in her room, but then because he stated, I can get in whenever I want to. So when she goes to barricade in the room, she's like, well, all I have to worry about is these two doors here, or the two windows here. So what does he do? He gets under her skin by tapping on the window in her bedroom with Sarah. Which at that point is, things get way serious. Shit gets real, and she really freaks out after that, which, makes sense. But then she's thinking about Sarah. Well, might still have her phone on her. So then she's back into that, story writer brain. She's thinking, oh, here's these things. Here's what I remember. So how do I put these pieces together?
Yeah.
And is able to distract him with the car alarm to go check for the phone. Of course, he did think ahead on that. He is not an idiot. He's pretty smart most of the time until he does make some dumb mistakes later on. But I think it's the more that she gets him frustrated, he makes more mistakes.
Yeah. I think he's used to being able to go in and do the job and be done.
Mm-hmm.
He was excited, I think, to have this little fight with her, or not fight, but I think he was excited to have someone a little bit different, but I think he underestimated exactly what she was capable of.
Yeah. The first strike she gets on him is then, when she's checking Sarah's body for the phone. It's not there, but then she does get a good stab in on his arm with the claw end of a hammer, which was not happy about, but then he's demented enough to where he just turns it into, okay, that was your play. I have to give it to you. That was a good one. Now it's my turn. And he just takes the earring off of Sarah and pockets it but I have a trophy. I've still got points. It's, man.
Yeah.
And then she'd been hiding inside the house, but then as he's circling the house, she's kind of picking up on that pattern a little bit. So she decides to go outside to hide under the deck. Bold move, Cotton. However, the second part of that plan, the taking off running part, did not pay off so well. Remember, crossbow.
Yeah, it was shades of Game of Thrones and Ramsay shooting at Rickon running across the field.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So she winds up back inside. But she has those little moments where she freaks out. She's like, I don't know what to do next. And then she tries something new. So the next idea is getting out on the roof. Again, crossbow. So that's still a problem. Not the ultimate winner of a choice. But it does help her. She throwing the flashlight into the woods, so he'll follow it, was really smart. But then, of course, when she's trying to climb down off the roof, bam, crossbow to the leg. That's bolt to the leg. That's going to happen. Almost one to the face. But it does work out to her favor. Yeah.
It did.
Because, again, he's getting a little frustrated, so he doesn't even think that she's going to be right there. He figures, she's going to be running. So he just climbs up the trellis, and then when he gets to the top, she's right there waiting. It's like, I'll take that crossbow. Thank you very much. Push you back to the floor. It's over, random man. I have the high ground.
when she got that compound bow, I was so excited for her.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, okay, you're going to do this.
Yeah, she escapes him. He climbs back up there, but she gets back into the window just in time. And it is this moment where they're staring at each other through that window. And she's like, I stole the bow. I got it. And you can tell he's mad at first, but then his face changes a little bit. I think he was a little impressed.
He was. I think the way that she got back through that window, I wrote down she's like a cat, because she just kind of, despite having an arrow through her leg, is climbing through there. Like, I mean, she's just adrenaline, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a shot of adrenaline.
And of course she's trying to figure out how to use the bow, and it takes a little more oomph than she was prepared for. I think it took her quite a while.
And she also, I think, she's looking at the barrel and she realizes this isn't the first time that he has done this. And he doesn't even have a name in this movie. Like, he's just the man. She looks at the barrel and notices all the notches, 13 of them. She realizes this isn't the first time that he's done it. So he's someone who's got experience doing this. So she's up against someone who can come up with an alternative plan pretty quickly if he needs to. So she knows that it's not going to be easy. Yeah.
Of course, at this time, we have John, Sarah's boyfriend, showing up at the house, trying to investigate a little bit. And our killer, the man, is just it comes down and puts on quite the police officer shtick. Honestly, it's almost like very convincing. Like, he's almost perfectly like convinced John, except for when he goes to pull the phone out of his pocket to give it back to him, the earring comes back out of the pocket with it. And then that's when he notices the earring, and then notices his arm bleeding. Then pieces kind of start falling apart about the owner of the home calling in a distress call, and it's like, well, she couldn't do that. So he's caught on to him.
Yeah. But then he comes up with that idea about the key and the planter, and the guy goes for it. He goes down to look in the planter, and you can tell at that time that John is trying to take him out. Maddie at first doesn't realize he's there. And I think really by the time she does, it's really too late.
She distracted John in order for him to get knifed through the neck. It was
maybe would have gotten problem.
Maybe would have gotten a hit on the killer who bashed his head in with that rock if he wouldn't have been stopped by Maddie banging on the door. But
well, John does buy her time though. Yeah. Like he gets into a fight with him and uses the last bit of strength he has to kind of take the killer out of commission. And that is when all the fun starts in Maddie's head.
Yeah.
And I loved that part. I thought it was so clever that she's sitting there basically, it looks like she's talking to herself. And they're talking, well, you can't do that. It's like, once he's in the house, it's over. Too many endings, all the same. You know, you can't run, you can't hide, you can't wait. What does that leave?
It's a cool callback to the conversation she has with Sarah about the book, where Sarah asks, how do you come up with the ending? Because I never would have guessed that one coming. And she says her, like, writer's brain, she always comes up with several different endings and then tries to figure out which one makes the most sense and how do you get from where you are to that one.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what she's doing, is she's coming up with all the different endings to her story and then working them out backwards to see which one is best, what's going to help her survive.
We get to see, though, what her endings are, and it's not pretty.
Yeah.
If you don't, I mean, I'm like, no, she doesn't die. Why is her head bashed in? And then it all came back. Because it's been a while since I've seen this.
Yeah, that first one was a cool, like, fake out death scene where you're like, what? Really? Yeah. And then it does kind of the flashback where she's like, okay, well, I can't do that. And then you see that was, like, played out in her head, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
If you can't run, hide, or wait, what does that leave?
Kill him. And it was right about the same time that the man meets bitch. And I said, once again, don't hurt the cat, Mike Flanagan. Don't hurt the cat.
Yeah. Which, if you ever wondered if he was really a bad guy, he threatened to kill the cat and nail it to the house. So, monster.
Yeah.
Definitely monster. He's also on his smoke break while doing this. Mentions to the dead body of John that he is waiting for Aaron. I want to call her Aaron. Then I want to call her Kate. Then I'm like, no, it's Maddie. She's all of them together in my head. But also waiting for her to bleed out more and get weaker because she did take the bow. That in case she gets a lucky shot off, he's going to wait a little bit longer to make sure she's a little weaker. And then she just comes outside and does get a lucky shot off. Kind of lucky. Not perfectly lucky, but does get him in the shoulder. Really just makes him mad more than anything.
She did a good job at making him mad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he comes back after her. She does get back in the house.
Oh, but her
barely.
Hand.
But yeah, before she gets all the way back in the house, he manages to trap and demolish her hand.
That was really gross.
It's brutal.
So gross.
And it's kind of this weird I'm sure it's kind of weird for him to be doing something like this and have no audible response. There is no screaming. There is no. It's just...
Well, the movies that we cover on this podcast, we are so used to that happening. And it's just different. I found overall this was a different movie for us to cover. Because it took some of those tropes and commonalities away. And we just have something very different.
Yeah. But she's kind of exhausted all of her options at this point. And it's last-ditch effort time, really. Because, he says he's coming in. So instead of fighting it that way, just challenge him. Just say, all right, well, then do it. Coward writes that even on there. Yeah. Just go out swinging, right? And then as he's trying to come in, she goes over and writes out a description of her in the book file, a little goodbye note to her family. She's going to fight. If she goes out, she's going out fighting. And that's some really heavy-duty glass on that door,
yeah,
isn't it?
I know.
Where do you get that stuff?
Yeah.
It's like bulletproof.
I wondered about that. I thought it was really clever that she did that she went to the laptop and typed in the information about the killer.
Mm-hmm.
And, the message to her family, because not that it would be a lot of comfort to them if she had died. It's a message. Like, it's her. Like, it's something they can take with them.
Mm-hmm. And so then that final little cat and mouse game or whatever with them when he's in the house, which there's such a great visual. It's maybe out of this whole movie, my favorite visual scene. Like when I think of this movie, the one that I think of is her in the bathroom waiting for him to come through the door. And then in this blurry frame behind her, he just lowers himself down into the bathtub from above, which I don't even know how that works exactly, but
I read into it a little bit, and I guess he came down through a skylight. Like he broke a skylight, which she wouldn't hear.
Right. But yeah, and then of course he probably would have killed her then, except he makes himself chuckle at a really dark joke, a dark line that he says where as he's kind of looking in the back of her neck with his knife and says, I think that you're holding out on me. I bet if I hit the right spot, I can make you scream.
Mm-hmm.
And then he kind of cracks himself up a little bit with that line, which then the air coming out of his mouth from that little chuckle is just enough to alert her to him being behind her, and she's able to move out of the way and stab him in the leg. Get back out of there.
Yeah. And she uses everything that she's got at her disposal, but you can tell that she's fading. Like, the blood loss is getting to her. She's really fading. Like, she doesn't have a lot of time left. But she's still going to do everything she can to fight back.
Oh, yeah. Wasp spray to the eyes.
Perfect.
Uses the world's loudest fire alarm to discombobulate him. But then, even after all that, he does still end up getting the upper hand and is choking her out. And then she does have that classic life flashing before your eyes moment, about. But at that last second, does get a grip on a corkscrew and just right through the neck, killing him. Dunzo.
One of the things I liked is when the movie opens, she's opening a bottle of wine with that corkscrew.
Yeah.
So I like the connection between the start and the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of those little... I mean, with the fire alarm even being a thing, with her forgetting that she's cooking and it going off, and there being a whole conversation about why is that thing so loud? And it's like, well, I need to hear the vibrations. And
right.
So we know then it's so loud that it's going to definitely throw him off.
Definitely.
And yeah, so then in the end, she gets her phone out of his pocket, calls 911, leaving the alarm going, which is a good idea. The police will definitely know where they're headed.
Yes, they will, because it's very loud. The world's loudest fire alarm.
And yeah, she'll just sit and wait for them to come up. The cat walks up and she looks down at the cat like,
I love you, bitch. Oh my God. I ain't gonna never stop loving you, bitch.
Oh, man. Not oh, man, but the man. I feel like we have to talk about him.
Yeah.
There's so much I feel like we've already talked about, but he really was playing cat and mouse with her, and he loved playing the game because this was a challenge. But I don't think for a second that he thought he wasn't going to win, although he did get very angry when she would get her licks in, and I feel like it was almost a chess match between the two of them. Mm-hmm. Who can one-up the other?
Yeah. And a lot of him early on is just being as creepy as he can. He's playing that mental torture game. You know, and even before she even knows, the fact that he can walk in the house and just stand right behind her, talking, clinking his knife, just making as much noise as he wants, and she just doesn't know, talking to her, like, whatever. And then, even while she's watching, I was like, don't scratch the glass on the door with your knife. Do not make that sound.
Oh, it's such a horrible
I was like, she can't
sound.
hear it, but you're torturing me, so stop.
I had a feeling you were going to bring that up, because I know how much you hate that sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's great. John Gallagher Jr. was great at the silent, creepy guy at first. And then he's great even at, like, not silent later, but...
Yeah.
But the way he's just nonchalantly walking around, sabotaging all of her possibilities of escape or survival or help, you know, just slashing the tires, closing her off from everything else, turning off the power, doing it. And he just walks around silently with the mask still on, doing all of that. Like, yeah, it's just what I do. It's no big deal.
Yep, it's his job. Another notch on the crossbow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the way that he switched to impersonate a cop, like a brand new deputy, and I'm thinking, you do not look like a deputy. The fact that John believes him for any amount of time, I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense. How are you buying any of this? Yeah.
I don't have any other notes about him. The other stuff I did were thrown in earlier.
One of the things I really liked also is when he's strangling her, the sound of the heartbeat slowing down. Like, these were little touches that I think made a big impact. The way that Flanagan played with sound, to me, sound and lack thereof, was clever.
Yeah, I mean, the whole movie starts off with us in that place where the opening production logos are all complete silence.
Yeah.
And then when the movie proper starts, you know, like Hush comes in with this big sound effect, and you're like, just throws you off kilter from the very beginning.
Well, and two, I mean, she did things like, she can't call the cat, so she shakes the food bowl. Mm-hmm. That happens here, like, it gets the cat's attention, but honestly, shaking the treat can gets a lot more. They'll come running and howl. And you know what, Pake? You've heard it. Mm-hmm. When they want to eat, they're definitely in. It's like the choir in my house. But yeah, I think that's all that I had.
That's it.
Yeah, this movie was very cut and dried. I don't think that... I feel like it was no nonsense. I don't think... There's not a lot of fluff. It's really just a fun, creepy movie with a lot of cool aspects in it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty simple. Not a whole lot to break down. It's a shorter movie, shorter podcast to talk about it, but it is a really, really good one, and I think it's definitely worth the watch. And I mean, just Flanagan's storytelling, so good.
Yeah, always. So I'm going to share some of the behind the scenes little factoids that I found out. Because the main character is deaf and mute, there's less than 15 minutes of dialogue. That means it's 70 minutes occur without any spoken word whatsoever. That's kind of a risk, I think, when you look at people and what they prefer going to movies. It's a risk, but I think it worked out well. I'm glad they didn't try to make it more noisy because it didn't need to be.
Mm-hmm.
So Mike Flanagan and Kate Siegel, of course, are a married couple. They came up with the storyline for Hush while they were on a dinner date in 2014. Was filmed in only 18 days, and only 5 living characters appear in the film, with one only appearing in a computer conversation in a single location. Flanagan didn't want the film to be pure silence, so he added in these ambient sounds that we heard, which you brought up. Siegel and Flanagan role-played each scene in their house before they started writing it down. It helped them better envision how the characters would react in the face of a dangerous situation.
I bet their home life is just fun. So much fun. They're just like in their like role-playing murderer in the house scenes just to be like, we're writing a movie, so I'm gonna get you. You know?
Yeah. The main character's name is Maddie. Her sister is Max. They're named after Kate Siegel's real-life niece and nephew. And this film has been remade twice in India, both in 2019. Once in Tamil and once in Hindi. And that, Pake, is all there is.
Wow.
Not tons, but it's okay.
Quick one, easy one, but fun.
Yeah.
It's good. Oh my goodness.
Wow. Just in time.
We'll have to see if anybody wrote in anything on this. You know, why didn't they FaceTime us for this one? I think it would have been a little better, but okay. Well,
it would have been better.
All right, we got a little bit of feedback this week. This first thing is not related to Hush or actually anything that we've done, but sometimes we have people kind of reach out and just give us ideas of other things. And we did hear from our friend Mo Favo over on Twitter, where she recommended Storm of the Century over on Hulu, which is based off of Stephen King. He tweeted that it is his favorite miniseries that he's written. And so now that it is available, she wanted to point that out to us. And yeah, I don't know. Again, like series and things are a little different for us. We covered like a whole season of one before. So I don't know. We may look at it. I mean, you know, we are both huge Stephen King fans here. So, you know, definitely something to look at, think about. And always, you know, we are grateful for you keeping tabs on things going on, letting us know and giving us ideas of what you guys want to hear. So we do always appreciate that.
Pake, have you ever seen it?
I have not.
It takes place on an island in Maine.
Well, it is a Stephen King. So if it's not, it's either Colorado or Maine, right? Like that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah, Mo, I think I'm going to try to put it in the queue somewhere. I feel like we have to, even if we do it as a 2-parter.
Yeah.
It's a long one, but it's good. It's like The Stand, somewhat.
Could be fun.
It's pretty good. I think it would be a good one for us to do.
All right, nice.
But moving on to Hush feedback, we did hear from Tony on Twitter, and she said, "This was my introduction to Mike Flanagan. With very little dialogue and characters, they pulled off a pretty great horror movie. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. The killer is this psychopath who plays this cat and mouse game with a woman who is deaf and mute. She has this huge disadvantage, but she fights back and you root for her the whole time. My only question is, why did he take his mask off so early in the movie? My husband hated that he did. He says that it makes the killer less scary. I disagreed. I think it makes him scarier. I think it made him more realistic, like this could happen, which to me is scarier."
Nice. I like that. Yeah.
I wondered that too, but I was okay with him taking the mask off.
Yeah. Then we get to see John Gallagher Jr. So
I know, right?
So this is your first look into Mike Flanagan, your first experience there. That's awesome. And so, yeah, as you've listened to this episode, you know that I highly recommend going and watching any of his movies he's had a hand in, which we will probably still try to cover a couple of those, or at least, something. He directed Dr. Sleep. So he did an incredible job with that. But then also, yeah, highly recommend the shows on Netflix, the Haunting shows, Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor, and then also Midnight Mass, Midnight Club's coming up. All those have been covered on Strange Indeed, just, plug. But yeah, so definitely dive into the world of Flanagan. This one's actually a little outside of his norm.
Mm-hmm.
There's usually a lot more psychological, emotional, family, character-driven things that really go in relationship stuff that goes on in a lot of what he does. So this one's actually a little outside of the norm for Flanagan to just kind of be a cut and dry, slasher horror movie in a way. But if you liked the character stories that he told in this movie, then I think you would love the things that he does with his other series and movies.
He's got a unique vision, and I really appreciate it.
And then we have one from, speaking of Strange Indeed, my co-host over there, Rima, which again, we've covered, all of the Flanagan shows over on Strange Indeed. So, Rima is a huge fan too. So she did reach out and said that she said, I love this one. I'm excited to have you two cover it. Thank you, Rima.
I know she loves Mike Flanagan too. So it's a lot of fun. For us to get to cover a movie, because I've listened to you guys cover this different series. So
yeah,
it's really cool to get to cover a movie.
Mm-hmm. And then we do have one voicemail from Steve Brown this week. Let's see. We got some live Steven going on.
Here we are.
Hello, Pake and Daphne. This is Steve. And this is for, is it Hush? Hush? Like the Paula Abdul song? Was that it? Hush, Hush. Oh no, that was Rush, Rush. Was it Rush, Rush or Hush? I don't remember. Paula Abdul had a song. Pake, you know who Paula Abdul is, right? I'm sure Daphne does.
Yeah, we're covering Paula Abdul this week. That's what's going on.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. You guys are doing such a great job. I've been remiss for Run for Your Lives. I've just not had time. It's been a crazy few weeks, and I will try to pick you up next week with a live Steve on whatever you do. I want to watch this Hush. It looks interesting. I just didn't get a chance this week. So, but I will definitely talk to you next week about whatever you do there. All right. Love you guys. Talk to you later.
Well, thanks, Steve. If you wait to the end of this episode, you'll learn what we're covering next week.
Yeah.
And I look forward to your live Steving on this one because it's one that I think you've probably seen a couple of times.
Yeah. We'll make you guys wait till the very end to hear what that's going to be. But yes, Steve, get to us on that. That'd be great. And if you want to just throw in some thoughts about Hush, because you should watch it, you could do that too.
Yeah. I feel like, honestly, there are a few movies that you should go back and watch, and we should just do a whole feedback section that is Steve catching up on all the movies he hasn't live Steved on.
There we go.
So, Steve, plan a full day for that, and we're going to look forward to hearing what you have to say about a bunch of movies.
We're just signing you up for it. You have no say. No, I'm kidding.
Nope. So if you'd like to submit feedback, like Mo, Tony, Rima, and Steve, you can go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/runforyourlivespodcast. You can email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. You can tweet at us on Twitter at RFYLPodcast. DM us on Instagram at runforyourlivespodcast. If you are enjoying the show, please tell your friends. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, pretty much all other podcast players. Go to runforyourlivespodcast.com for all the links you'll ever need and give us a review on Apple Podcasts, as that's the best way to share the love and get us out there even more. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We really do. Yeah, Apple has been like a big deal on getting things out there. So if you want to share the love, and we actually just recently found out because our friend Jason with Podcastica has been trying to do kind of a bump and things on there. So I'm just going to go ahead and give a shout, even though this podcast is technically not part of the Podcastica umbrella. I do that, with Strange Indeed. So give a shout. Go to Podcastica and give all of their stuff a listen. Go to Apple iTunes and actually search Podcastica on Apple Podcasts, and you can get all of those. And then just go through and subscribe and download episodes from all of those shows that they're covering that you have interest in. Really help them a lot because they got a lot of new shows launching that people just can't really find unless they're already a fan of Podcastica. So just go get, if you're a fan of what's going on with this circle of podcasts around us, like I always talk about, then I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there. Just give Jason a little bit of love and go give Podcastica a little bit of love over on Apple Podcasts as well.
Yeah, Pake and I both podcast over there at Podcastica. Mm-hmm. I've got a show coming up here that we'll talk about in a minute. And Pake's on there on Strange Indeed all the time. So yes, please give Podcastica and the podcasts over there some love.
For sure. But speaking of other podcasts in the podcast universe around us, always got to give those shout outs. So of course, my other podcast that is on the Podcastica network there, Strange Indeed, me, Jason, and Rima, still working through the third and final season of Lock and Key. Episode 5 is up now. Go check that out. And yeah, it's been interesting. I'm curious to see where they go with this season. We've been having a blast covering it, and then talk about Mike Flanagan stuff. What they teased out like that. I just realized, Midnight Club, the next Flanagan show, is out next month, and we will be covering that because me and Rima love Flanagan. You know that. So be on the lookout for that for sure.
Looking forward to that one.
Yes. And then, of course, in Podcastica, under the House Podcastica umbrella, and then all their own shows. So if you want to go do that and go to Apple Podcasts, like I mentioned, here's the shows you need to look up. Of course, there is Sandman Cast with Mark and Jamie covering Sandman on Netflix right now. There is She-Hulk Cast, where you can go hear Penny and Greg. I almost said Peggy and Gren. That's not their names. Penny and Greg are covering She-Hulk on She-Hulk Cast for Podcastica. They're doing a great job over there. You can go check out Dragon Cast, where Rima and Kristen are covering House of the Dragon on HBO. The Cast of the Rings, Anwin and Penny covering Amazon Prime's The Rings of Power. Also been really great. Go check that out. A lot of good stuff. And then, of course, Daphne, you did mention that you have something coming up very soon.
So maybe next Wednesday, a little show, you might have heard of it, called The Handmaid's Tale, is coming back. Hulu is going to drop a couple of episodes, and we have you covered with a podcast, so stay tuned for that over at Podcastica.
Yeah, and that will be posting on House Podcastica. And do you have a separate feed for that one as well?
Yep, the Handmaid's Tale podcast.
Nice. So be sure to check that out and do the same with that one if you're doing those. And then also Cobra Kai Cast is coming out next week as well. That drops today as you're listening. It is out right now. Cobra Kai, the next season is out. I think it's season 4.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is out now, and they will be covering that. So that episode should be up within the next day. I think they're recording tomorrow, which is Saturday. So yeah, they're recording that. So it'll be up Saturday night, Sunday, I'm sure. So go check that out. And that is also under House Podcastica, and then Cobra Kai Cast. Go check those out. And Walking Dead Cast, which is the only one that's not under another umbrella, but is its own thing. Go check that out. Walking Dead Cast, covering Tales of the Walking Dead right now. So a big fan of Walking Dead. They've been covering that. The final season will be coming back and coming to a close next month.
Oh, man.
A lot of big things coming. We mentioned it. Definitely go to, podcastica.com/TWD finale party. Did mention that. If you are interested in coming and meeting me and Daphne and Jason and Rima and so many other Podcastica hosts over in San Francisco, in the Bay Area, because we're doing the watch party in Oakland across the bridge. But yeah, come hang out in the Bay Area. Come see all of us. Come watch the Walking Dead finale. Go to that website and you can find out how to be involved. Get tickets. Come hang out. It'll be a lot of fun.
It's going to be so much fun. We're doing a couple of other things that weekend as well. So we're making a full weekend out of it. So it's going to be a long weekend of just hanging out and having fun. And then all being together when we say goodbye to this amazing show that has, been a force in our lives since 2010.
Yeah.
I'm not ready.
It's crazy.
I'm not ready.
And then lastly, of course, I always want to give a shout out to TV podcast industries, the hardest workers in the podcast game, I swear. Always doing so much stuff over there. And yeah, because right now they have episodes coming out weekly over Umbrella Academy, She-Hulk, Sandman, and Rings of Power. So definitely go check out all the stuff they're doing on those shows as well. But lastly, and Steve's been waiting for this moment, Daphne, yes. What's happening next week right here on Run for Your Lives?
Well, when a transatlantic ocean liner is flipped upside down by a tsunami during its final voyage, it's up to a self-proclaimed renegade reverend to get the passengers to safety. By popular demand, we are covering the 1972 disaster film, The Poseidon Adventure.
It's happening! Cue the meme from The Office. It's happening, everybody! It's finally happening! Yeah, we're getting there. We're doing it next week.
We have just a couple of episodes left before we close out the season, and our 100th episode is coming up as well. So we thought, why not now? We've been holding on to this movie for a while and wanted to do it at just the right time. It's the right time.
Yeah, so it's... Yeah, because only things coming up after that, for those who kind of follow what we know, is, we're doing our Tremors that we do every end of the season. We're doing our Look Back special, and then a special episode 100 that, again, you'll have to wait just a little bit longer to figure out. So this kind of is the unofficial season finale, where it's the last kind of random movie that you don't know what we're going to go with. So, it's a great way to wrap it up, I think.
And the Tremors that we're covering this time is 5, which means... out in the universe, if you're in charge of making additional Tremors movies, you need to get on that, because we're going to be done with Tremors movies in 2 seasons. So, just saying, get on that, please.
It's funny introducing you to the new Tremors movies in this series as they come up. Because they just get wackier, and it's always a good time. So. Lots of good stuff coming up.
I always look forward to it. Our conversations are so funny because I had never seen any past the first one.
Yeah.
And so this is Pake's way of getting back at me, I think, for introducing him to some of the ridiculousness that I've brought to his attention doing this podcast.
Right. You made me watch 30 Days of Night. No, I'm just kidding. That movie's not that bad.
No. You made me watch Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I think we're even for a while.
Oh, man.
And with that, we've reached the end of another fun episode. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.